Yes, sir.
All right. Okay. Uh, the topic that we want to discuss today is about engineering ethics. That what is engineering ethics, and what is the difference between morals and ethics, and what are different points that we need to keep in our mind, or what are different skills that we need in order to resolve the moral issues. That's what we will be talking about today. So, uh, you know that when we discuss the course content of this subject, we discuss that in professional ethics, we will also be talking about engineering ethics. Now, today we'll see that what is engineering ethics. So, engineering ethics, we have two words here: engineering and ethics. Now, you guys in sixth semester, and you are studying civil engineering, right? So, I hope you guys would have some idea about, or you should have some idea about engineering, that what is engineering? How can we define it? Actually, there are several different ways, but what are your thoughts on this? If I ask you to define engineering, that what is engineering? So what would you say? Anyone? Raise your hand. You can raise your hand and then I'll call you. Anybody? Or should I ask? Should I pick up somebody? Okay. Ehrima? Sorry if I mispronounce your
Yes,
name.
sir. Yes, sir.
G.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes. So what's your name, by the way?
Sir, it's Ehrima Rafiq.
Ehrima Rafiq. Okay, Ehrima. So what do you think? You are in sixth semester of civil engineering. You have studied a lot of engineering subjects. If I
Yes.
ask you to define engineering, not like in an exact word, but what do you think? What is engineering?
Sir, I think it is to design or to make something or is to invent something new to for the ease of human beings.
To invent something new for the ease of human beings. Okay, fine. So this one idea. All right. Anybody else? G Uzair.
Sir, the use of different scientific and mathematical principles for the benefit of the world and mankind.
All right. Okay, that makes sense. G Mubin.
Sir, to create innovation in the technical field.
To create innovation in the technical field. Okay, all right, right. So, like all our definitions, like make sense. There, as I said earlier, that there are several different ways in which engineering can be defined. Now, let's see what particular definition I have. So, engineering is the process of developing an efficient mechanism which quickens and eases the work using limited resources with the help of technology. So in engineering, we make use of technology. We use different kinds of instruments and tools and machines and equipments or sensors. We use them and we try to develop such solutions which can quicken and which can make our work easy. And we also try to do this in a limited, using limited resources, because there are a lot of things which can be done, but if you done in a layman's approach, but if you do not use the principles of mathematics or science, then you will utilize too much resources in doing that. And as an engineer, this is one of our main focus to make sure that we always make use of limited resources. By the way, in civil engineering, we always teach that we have three basic objectives. Do you guys know what are those objectives? Anybody? Or there are three main things that we have to focus on. What is the first one that we have? First thing that we need to ensure as a civil engineer, if we are designing any structure, let's say you are designing a building, what is the
Safety.
foremost? Safety, that's correct. So our first objective, or the most important objective, is to ensure safety. The structures that we design should be safe, they should not collapse. What is the second one?
Economy.
Economy. That's true. Now structures can be made safe using a lot of resources and putting in a lot of material and money into it. But if you do it that way, that is not engineering. Okay, engineering is to make it safe using limited resources. And what is our third priority?
Construction should be completed within the time.
Construction. Okay, this is like one of the many things. But the third thing that we are concerned with is aesthetics. Normally, as engineers, we are not much concerned with that. That comes third in our list. Normally, architects are concerned about this. They are interested in beautifying the structures. But anyways, that was just a side thing. So this is one of the definitions of engineering. And as we discussed before, the ethics. Let's see one of the definitions of ethics. So ethics are the principles accepted by the society, which also equate to the moral standards of human beings. So in simple words, these are do's and don'ts, and which are defined by the society. And these ethics may vary culture to culture and country to country, or from one community to the other community. We'll talk about that in a short while. So these are the separate definitions of engineering and ethics. Now, what is engineering ethics? Engineering ethics is the study of decisions, policies, and values that are normally desirable in engineering practice and research. So the ethical values that we have to keep in our mind while practicing engineering or while doing research in engineering, those ethical values formulate the engineering ethics. And these ethical values are defined by different agencies. For example, as we discussed in the very first lecture, that ASCE has a code, ethical code of conduct. Similarly, Pakistan Engineering Council has a code of conduct, and we will talk about that in coming lectures. So these ethical values which are important for the practice and research of engineering, those are termed as engineering ethics. And as an engineer, if you have the technical knowledge as well as you follow the ethics, then you can be a really beneficial member of the society, because these are the two most important things for you: your technical knowledge and your ethical values. Okay, that's what we are trying to learn here in this subject. Now, after these ethical values, now let me, okay. After this ethical value, I want to bring one difference into your notice. Normally, we use morals and ethics as two interchangeable words. We say morals and ethics, and we don't care much about the difference. That's what we normally do. But actually, there is a fine difference between morals and ethics. By the way, does any one of you has any idea about this? Have you ever thought about this, or um, any comments on this? What can be the possible difference between morals and ethics? Morals क्या होते हैं? Moral values क्या होती हैं? And what are ethics? Anybody? Any idea? Okay, no idea. Okay, now let me give you some idea about this. Morals are basically like both the ethics and morals. They tell us our do's and don'ts, like the good things and the bad things. But the difference between morals and ethics is that the morals are defined by one own self. Morals are not defined by any society or any organization or any community. Rather, morals are our personal moral values, our personal standards that we define for ourselves as we grow in our knowledge, our education, our exposure. When we go to different communities, or from our personal experience, we define certain do's and don'ts for our own self. And those do's and don'ts or those behavioral standards are termed as morals. And in contrast to this, ethics are the standards which are defined by the society or by some organization or by the community, or defined in a within certain region or country. So those values which are defined by some external agent or external group, those values are termed as are ethical values or ethics. And normally, most of the time, like there is a lot of overlap in these values. That's why we use these terms interchangeably. But in reality, these two terms are different from each other, and the difference is a bit fine, but still they are different. Okay, now let me see. Let me show you what do I have on my slides for you about morals. So the word morality originates from Latin word mos, meaning custom. Morals are the principle or habits with respect to right or wrong of one's own conduct. They are not imposed by anyone. So as I said that morals are defined by our own self. Morals are not defined by the society or by any external group of people or agent. And these morals are code of conduct that we develop over time, and these are defined by our own self. So these morals can change with the time. For example, you are living in this community. Let's say you have never gone out of this out of our country, so you have certain moral values. When you go abroad, let's say you go to Europe or you go to Africa or United States or anywhere else, and you get a different exposure, and you grow, and as a result of that growth, you may define new moral values for yourself. So these morals, uh, they they change when you can define new moral values for yourself. And some of the moral values that normally people define for themselves are like being good to everyone, speaking the truth, going against what you think is wrong, avoid cheating, or being a nice human being. These are just some examples of moral values that people normally define for themselves. And then we have ethics. The word ethics originates from the Greek word ethos, meaning character. Ethics are a set of rules or principles that are generally considered as standards or good or bad, and or right and wrong, and these values are imposed by external group or society or a profession. For example, in engineering, we will be studying the engineering ethics, which are defined by American Society of Civil Engineers, or which are defined by Pakistan Engineering Council. And these ethics are dependent uh, on others' definition. So they vary from culture to culture. For example, like currently we are here in Pakistan, right? So we have uh, certain ethics here or in this community in our culture. um, if you go in any other society or in any other culture, like for example, we have some of the students in our class who have come from some other countries, like from Afghanistan or from Palestine or from somewhere in Africa, right? Or some other country of Asia. So we have those students, and they have come from a different culture, from a different country, and they had different ethical values over there. And when they have come here, uh, they have they have to abide by different ethical values. Uh, now, can we think of some examples, some activities, or some things which are normal to do in our community and that's not considered as normal in some other communities, or vice versa? Can anybody give me some examples of that? Some uh, some things or some activities which are considered as ethical here and not in some other countries, and vice versa. Can any one of you give me any example about this that you think is ethical in one society but unethical in some other society? If you have experienced it by yourself, or you have knowledge about that. By the way, do we have any foreigners in class? Any foreigners? Is there any foreigner in our class from any country? No. CR? CR, are you there? CR, are you in class?
Yes, sir.
Okay. आपका क्या नाम है CR? Uzair?
Yes, sir.
Uzair, do we have any foreigners in our class?
Sir, we have one foreigner, but I think she's not present today.
Oh, there is only one foreigner in this class. Where
Yes,
is she
sir.
from?
Only, sir, she's from Sri Lanka.
Oh, she's from Sri Lanka. Okay, so she's not here. Okay, anyways. So, by the way, can any one of you think of something which is ethical in Pakistan and unethical abroad, or vice versa? Anybody? No? Okay. Let me give you an example. For example, drinking alcohol. Drinking alcohol is unethical in our society. We don't consider it as ethical, like majority of the people. But let's say you are in the United States or you are in Europe, that's not an issue then. You can easily buy alcohol and you can consume it. That's not a problem. There are certain legal boundaries, but as long as you abide by the law and uh, you restrict yourself within those limits, then there is no issue of ethics. Okay. And similarly, the way we dress up and the way people dress up in some other countries, like some of the dressing codes might be considered as unethical in our society, but they might be totally fine in some other societies. So these are just two examples. And yesterday we were having a class, and I asked the same question to the students, and one of the students said that in Afghanistan, he said that we just say salam. We don't say assalamu alaikum. We say salam, and that is considered as totally fine and appropriate. But he said that when he did the same thing here in Pakistan, then people don't like this. They mind this. They think that saying complete salam is the right thing, assalamu alaikum. If you say just salam, that's not appropriate. So this was just another small example. So in the point that I want to make, that these ethics vary from culture to culture and society to society. So whenever in future, whenever you guys get the opportunity to go abroad and just socialize with different people of different societies and cultures, then at that stage you will have to like, it will be good if you learn their culture as well, and if you know their culture, then you know what is ethical and unethical near the like according to their beliefs, and then you can be, if you have that knowledge, then you can be respectful to them. It is very important for us to be respectful to others beliefs as well, and that's how we can grow communities. Okay. All right, so let's come back to our presentation. So now we know the difference between morals and ethics, but again, as I said, that both the things are kind of standards, like do's and don'ts. So normally we use them interchangeably and we'll keep on doing that. But I just wanted to highlight the difference so that you guys know what is the difference. Okay, next we have some moral issues. Now, a moral issue can be understood as an issue to be resolved not only by considering the technical stuff, by also keeping moral values in mind. So as an engineer, a lot of time we deal with technical stuff, right? We have, let's say you are designing a building or a bridge or a dam, or designing some foundation. So most of the time we deal with technical issues. Like, uh, for example, can anybody give me an example of a pure technical issue? Asim. No, no, Asim. Sorry. Anis. Anis Malik, are you there? Anis, are you there? Anis, you're not there. Okay, then another student. AMISH. Bashir. Okay. Are you in class? Amish? Bashir? Are you there? Nah, Amish Bashir
Yes, sir.
989. Okay. What's your name? How do
Yes,
you
sir.
pronounce your name?
Amish, sir. Amish Bashir.
Amish. Okay. Amish Bashir. So Amish, क्या आप मुझे बता सकते हैं कोई? Can you give me some example of some just technical issue, pure technical issue?
Hmm.
Did you hear what did I say about moral issues? Hear me.
Hear me.
You don't want to say anything. Okay, Umar, you have raised your hand.
Yes, sir. Sir, failure of structure is a pure technical issue.
Failure of a structure. Okay, in failure there can be different aspects, but anyway, this can be purely a technical issue. Or you are designing a beam. How much should be the depth of the beam? How much steel should be there? How much should be the depth of footing? How much should be the thickness of slab? What should be the diameter of a column? All these issues are purely technical issues. There is no moral or ethical aspect to these issues, right? So as an engineer, a lot of time we deal with pure technical issues which do not have moral aspects to it. But in a lot of other cases, we deal with issues that have technical side as well as moral side. So we have to identify the moral aspect of it, and there are uh, certain things that we need to keep in our mind while resolving those moral issues. Okay. Now let me give you a couple of examples of moral issues which you may come across in engineering. Example number one: after a recent collapse of a structure in which many people died, an engineer came to know about a bridge which is marginally safe. He informed his supervisor, who asked him to stay calm and not to discuss with anyone while waiting for the next year's budget sessions to get some financial help for the repair required. What should the engineer do? Now, you see, in this kind of problem, we do not have just a technical problem, but there is a moral issue too, because the bridge is unsafe and you need to fix that. Nobody else knows about that, and you have informed your supervisor about that, but no funds are available. That's why he told you to just stay quiet about that and wait for the next year's budget. But now, what should you do? Should you leave that structure unsafe? Would it be moral? Like, would your moral values or ethical values allow you to do that, to remain quiet about something which is dangerous and uh, which is unsafe for the public? As an engineer, it's your responsibility to highlight such issues and fix them. But now there is a problem. You know the problem, you know the issue, but you don't have funding. That's why you cannot highlight that issue. So this kind of problem has a technical aspect. Now, whatever is the damage or whatever is the problem with that structure, that is the technical issue. Okay, and now you are not allowed to highlight that and proceed to fix that because the funding is not there. And if you highlight that, then there will be a lot of public pressure. Uh, that's why you cannot talk about that. So this is example of a moral issue, like an issue that has technical aspect as well as moral aspect. And let's see another example. Another example is, what should an engineer do? Engineer who observes his colleague copying confidential information unauthorized do immediately. If he chooses to stop his friend, what if he gets repeated? If this gets repeated without his notice? If he chooses to report the management, what if his friend loses his job? Which is morally correct. So now you have, in every organization, we have certain confidential information that you don't want to leak or you don't want anybody to copy. So what if you see one of your friends who is not authorized to copy certain information, copying that information. Uh, what should you do? Should you just ask him not to do that? Okay, if you do that, what if he does that again and without your notice? So that will be harmful for the organization. And what if you report the higher ups about this? Your friend might lose your job, lose his job. So now again, this issue has a moral aspect as well. The uh, so in this case now, what should we decide? What should we do? Should we report the management or should we not report the management? So it's a kind of moral issue, and you will have to think about this, how to resolve this issue. We'll see some points about resolving such issues as well. But the point of these two examples was just to give you an idea that we come across a lot of moral issues in engineering practice as well. Okay. All right. Before we go to the resolving the moral issues, what do you think? Let me get your feedback on this. What do you guys think? How should the moral issues be uh, be dealt with? What should we do when we come across a moral issue? Hamza, Hamza Niaz. Ji Hamza, what do you think? How the moral issues should be dealt with? क्या करें? In your practical life, you will come across moral issues a lot of times. What do you think? How how should we resolve these moral issues? Okay, okay, okay. All right. So this was his idea. Fine. Okay. And one more thing that I said, I pointed out before as well. I want all of you guys to use um, your actual names on Teams. Okay. I see a lot of nicknames here. So, but I don't want that. So you guys, all of you guys, should use your real names here so that I can call you. Okay. So those of you who are using some nicknames here, just change them. Okay. So next time when we join the meeting and I don't want to see your nicknames here. Okay. Naveed Abbas, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Naveed, तो आपका क्या ख्याल है? What do you think? How should we deal with the moral
Sir,
issues?
सर इतना अभी नहीं आइडिया
Okay. अभी आइडिया नहीं है आपको moral issues किस तरह हम
यस
deal कर सकते हैं. All
डील
right.
कर सकते
Anyways.
हैं यस सर
Okay. Anyways, let me explain some of the points that will help us in dealing with the moral issues. Okay, so in moral issues, uh, moral issues that we face, they should be dealt with patience. And first step or first thing that we need to keep in mind is moral awareness. Moral awareness is recognizing the moral problems. That if you face any problem or any issue comes in front of you, you need to identify that whether it is a moral issue or it's a technical issue. For example, just a few minutes ago, I gave you some examples of purely technical issues, depth of beam, reinforcement of uh, column or depth of footing or thickness of slab. These are purely technical issues. There is no moral side to it. But there were we saw a couple of examples which had moral sides to them as well. So whenever we come across any issue, we should be able to identify that whether it's a moral issue or a technical issue or a legal issue. That is termed as moral awareness. So first thing, we should have moral awareness. Second is cogent moral reasoning. Now, what do we mean by cogent moral reasoning? If we have a moral issue in which different parties are involved. Let's say two different parties are involved or three parties are involved. So we should listen to all the parties to get their point of view before making any decision. And all the arguments should be should be recorded or should be written, and we should uh, arrange the argument in their logical and moral manner, right? Whatever are the arguments. So all the parties should be listened to, and they should be given an opportunity to express their opinion. That's what we mean by cogent moral reasoning. And next is moral coherence. Moral coherence means that we should, once we have all the points aligned in a logical manner, all the facts are there, then we should have a consistent and comprehensive viewpoint in order to reach to a conclusion. Like, it should not be like we do any pick and choose, or we treat some people in certain way and some other people or issues in some other way. No, that is not the moral way. Moral coherence says that our viewpoint and our strategies should be consistent for everybody. That is termed as moral coherence. And moral imagination. Moral imagination means that when we have moral issue, we should think about the moral solutions, as well as we should keep the practical solutions in our mind. And we should consider different alternatives, and then we should reach a conclusion, the best solution that can satisfy the moral side as well as technical side of the problem is. That is moral imagination. Now, let me give you an example. Or before going to the example, let's see the last point as well, moral communication. Moral communication means whenever you are involved in any issue that has moral side to it, moral issue, so you might find that some of the people might not be behaving in a morally correct way. Now, in that case, what should you do? How should you communicate to them? You should be actually very careful in your communication, because if you are not precise, clear, and plus respectful, you might make a lot of enemies in your organization. So you have to, like, a lot of time you see that the people are corrupt or the people are lying, but you cannot say that exactly in front of their face that they are liars or they are corrupt people. You have to uh, you have to be polite or be calm. If you start being aggressive with everyone, then you might end up in trouble. I'll just explain this with an example. Um, in a lot of our public sector organizations like CNW, Irrigation, WASA, WAPDA, and so on, uh, you might have heard that people, beside their salaries, the people who are working there, they take commission from the projects. Have you guys ever heard about this? I hope if some of your friends or family members or seniors working in the
Yes,
organizations,
sir.
in these organizations, and if you have ever talked to them, you might have heard about that. Who said yes? Yes, किसने कहा अभी?
Yes, sir. मतलब 2% ये बड़ा फेमस है 2%.
हाँ जी, राकिब राकिब ने बिल्कुल, ये जो 2% बड़ा फेमस है, बिल्कुल आपने ठीक कहा। ये जी एसडीओ का 2% है और एक्सीएन का इतना है और चीफ इंजीनियर का इतना है। तो ये परसेंटेजेस जो हैं वो मशहूर है। Now there is a lot of difference of opinion about this. So राकिब, मैं आपसे पूछता हूँ कि what is your opinion about this? Is it okay to accept that, or it's not okay, and why? So this is something, a very direct
Unethical.
example for you guys. This is something that you guys will be dealing with in your future. Like, okay, Rakib, sorry, I interrupted you. Please go ahead.
It is unethical.
It is unethical. Okay. Have you ever discussed this with the people working in those organizations? And if yes, what is their point of view? वो क्या कहते हैं?
तो सर मतलब ये सुना है को कहते हैं कि मतलब ये मजबूरी अगर आप नहीं लेते तो मतलब अगर आप किसी को कह भी नहीं सकते, अगर आप कहेंगे तो मतलब आपको वहाँ पे एग्जिस्ट करना बहुत मुश्किल हो जाएगा.
Right. That is the other aspect of it. Okay, Mohsin Rana, right? Mohsin नाम ही आपका जो hand
Yes,
raise
sir.
किया. जी Mohsin.
So my father told me that it is settled by the government, and we are forced to give it by the government, not them. It is not our their commission. But I don't think so. It is okay because we are paid by government. But it is also stated that it is fixed by the government.
Fixed by the government. Okay. All right. So yeah, that this was the other perspective. Now there are, as as a couple of students pointed out, there are different perspective to it. Some people, especially the ones which are not working in these organizations, like the outsiders, they most of them think that this is not correct. This is not legal because they think, okay, if you are getting your salary in return to your services, then that should be it. But now the people who are working in those organizations, they have different perspective. One perspective is that uh, this is not a secret, or this is an open secret. Everybody knows, and this system is running for like ages, and that's how it is. The kind of work we are doing or the effort that we are putting in, our salary is not enough, and this is something well defined, and the system is running since long, so this is totally fine. We are we are they, they think that we are entitled to get this money. And now some people have the objection that, okay, if this is you are entitled, then you should get this money in your bank account in the form of a bank transaction if it's totally legal, and you should pay tax on this. That basically makes it legal. But that's not how they do it. They all these transactions in the form of cash. Uh, but then the people working in those organizations, they say that, okay, it's in the form of cash, but we have proper record of it. There is a register in our department or in our office, and we keep track of all this money. So this is, if they say this is documented, that's their justification. So now this is something where disagreement is, again, a lot of people who work in those organizations, they think that this is fine. Most of the people who are not working in in those organizations, they think that is not fine. So now there is a, you may say it's a dilemma or it's an issue. We don't have 100% agreement on that. So whenever we have this kind of issue, then we have to look for different alternatives and different solutions, kind of creative solutions. So what are the solutions that uh, different people adopt in these situations? Now, let's say a person working in these organizations, he thinks that this is not right, and he does not want to accept this money. Let's say he is an STO. For example, you guys graduate, the immediate post you will get, that will be of an SDO. And let's say you have an opinion that this money is not correct and you don't want to accept it. Now, what the problem is that nothing will be, or no bill will be passed without your signature. So if you like refuse to sign the bill, the project will be stopped, or the whole financial activity will be stopped, and the people who want to get the commission out of that bill, they will not be getting it. And then there will be pressure on you, from your higher ups, that, oh, we are, the bills are not moving and we are not getting our share. So why is that? And then ultimately everybody will reach out to you, hey, why are you not signing the bill? Just sign it and move it forward. And you'll say that, oh, this is unethical. I don't think so, that there is commission in this bill and I don't want to sign it. Now there will be issues and trouble, and you will have to face that pressure. So under such situation, what some people do, but their solution is, they say, okay, I will sign the bill and I will let it go, but I will not take money by myself. I will not accept my share. I will say, okay, whoever wants to have the commission, he can have it, but I will not accept any money out of it. That's one way. Another solution that these people who think that this money is not legal, they do is, they get themselves transferred to such a division of the department where there is no financial activity, right? No projects are there, kind of dull place, and no financial activity, so no bills, no commission, and they are happy there. But what happens is, as the time passes, it has certain disadvantages too. Um, for example, you you are at a place where you are there is no activity, so basically you after some time you feel yourself get rusted, because when you graduate from the university and you go into the field, then in the initial, especially in the initial part of your career, you have a lot of things to learn. And if you are at a place that is redundant and useless, and no activity is there, then it means you yourself are not involved in any activity, which means that you are not learning anything, you are not growing, and after some time you feel that, oh, I've got rusted, and that is not a good feeling. So that's one disadvantage of that. Secondly, your peers, your session fellows who are working in the same environment and who are getting that money, with the passage of time, as they are getting that money, their life standard starts improving. They start, like, if they did not have a car before, they buy a car, or if they had a small car before, they might buy a big car. After some years, like, you might find some of your friend who has exactly the same designation buying a house in some buying a plot or a house, or something like that. So you might gradually experience or observe that their life standard is getting better, and then there is a lot more pressure on you because you feel like left out. So these are the issues. So when you are in that situation, and you are in like you are making that decision, you need to keep all these things in your mind. It's hard to give a verdict what is right and what is wrong, but uh, all I'm saying is that you need to keep all the things in your mind and make your choices wisely. Another option is, which some of the people do, they leave such jobs and they move to private sector. In private sector has its own advantages and disadvantages. You have a lot less job security, but and they give you tough time. You have to work harder, but you in return you learn and you earn more money, and there is no such issues which we have in the public sector organizations. So it's a trade-off, and at the end it comes to your own moral values, that what you think is right and wrong, and what is acceptable and unacceptable to you. So I just wanted to give you an example of moral issues that you will be facing in your professional life. Uh, so the purpose is, if you have this idea beforehand, you can make your choices wisely. All right. Anybody having any question or comments about this?
Sir, what are your views about this particular situation? Like, we
Uh,
should accept the commission or not, or we should leave the job, or we should face the pressure, or what should we do in that particular situation?
I mean, my personal opinion, again, this is my personal opinion only, was this, that I did not want to indulge in any such activity. And I never liked that. That is why I opted not to join those organizations and I came to the university. Now, this is a place where we don't face any such situations. So that was my personal choice. But again, it varies. It varies person to person. In my personal opinion, like, I did not want to get indulged in any such activity, or I did not want to be a part of that process. So that was my opinion.
Okay, sir. All right.
All right. Okay. Anything else? All right. If not, then let me go back to the slides. So these were some of the steps in dealing with the moral issues. Then after that, there are some important skills in dealing with for ethical reasoning. We have almost discussed those steps. Let me just uh, quickly cover from the slides. We don't have much time. So moral reasonableness. Moral reasonableness is the ability and the willingness to be moral reasonable. You should be willing to address the moral aspects of the issues. There are some people who just simply don't care. They don't care about morality or ethics. So that is not something desirable. You should have that moral aspect in your life. And if you want to be, and you should be like an honest and truthful person. So that moral reasonableness should be there if you want to be a good professional and follow the professional ethics. Respect for persons. Now, as I said that the example that we took about this commission, if you talk about the people who are working there in those organizations, they a lot of people, they are totally fine with that culture, and they consider it as totally legal and ethical. But if you are of a different point of view and you become part of that organization, now for you, your opinion might be very strict about this. You might be thinking, like, if I quote in inverted commas, you might be thinking it is like haram, okay? And the people who are accepting that money, you might have very strong feelings against them. But the point is that to survive in this society, even if you think that's wrong and you don't accept it for yourself, but you have to deal with these people in a respectful manner, because if you don't, then you'll make a lot of enemies, and it will be very challenging for you to survive in that organization or in that society. So and there is another thing, that you might have an opinion against about that activity, but don't go against that person. You should be against that certain activity, not you should not hate that person. You should respect the person, even if you don't disagree, even if you don't agree. And there's a small point here about our own selves as well. Sometimes we also, like, we are all human beings, and sometimes we ourselves indulge into certain activities that we are not proud of. And in some of the cases, the people who get indulged in such activities, later in their life, they become really self-critical, and they become really harsh on themselves, and people go into depression and anxiety. So another thing is, not only respect others, but respect yourself as well. If you have ever done a mistake, then don't be very harsh on yourself. Give yourself a little bit of room. Okay. Tolerance and diversity. It's very important for us to be tolerant of diversity, because if we are not tolerant, we are unable to formulate societies or communities. Because if you see, let's say you are 50 students in the class, and you start noticing that how diverse your class is, how many people speak, or like how many different languages the people speak, how many different religious beliefs that people have, how many different parts of the country you guys belong to, and we have some foreigner friends too. So if we are not tolerant to all this diversity, then at the end we will be living alone, and that is not something desirable. We, like, human beings are social animals. We need to socialize, and we need a harmonious society. Okay. Moral hope. That moral hope means that if we have a rational dialogue with each other and we have good communication, then it is possible to resolve all these issues, and formulate a society which is healthy, which is tolerant to this diversity. And the last thing is the integrity. We must be a person of integrity. We must deal all these moral issues after considering all the aspects. Then we should have a consistent point of view, and we have a standard a behavior, and we should deal with these issues consistently. That is what do we mean by integrity, and that makes us a good professional and a good human being. So that's it from my side. Anybody having any question or comments or remarks? or is there anything that you don't agree with? You want to highlight your disagreement? You are welcome.
सर वो एक चीज़ के बारे में पूछना था।
जी
सर इस सब्जेक्ट की हमारा एवेल्युएशन क्राइटेरिया क्या होगा? यूजुअली ये होता है कि सिंगल क्रेडिट का मतलब हमारा मिड फाइनल वगैरह नहीं होता, तो इस केस में इस सब्जेक्ट का हमारा किस तरह से होगा?
अभी तक तो डिसीजन ये है कि मिड होगा और फाइनल होगा, बट इफ दैट चेंजेस आई विल लेट यू नो। आपका और कौन सा सब्जेक्ट है सिंगल क्रेडिट का?
सर एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप भी है एक,
ठीक है, वो कौन पढ़ा रहा है? वो आईबीएम वाले पढ़ा रहे हैं?
यस।
ओके, सो व्हाट इज देयर पॉलिसी?
सर अभी तक उन्होंने बताई नहीं, और बाकी लेक्चर भी शायद अभी नहीं हुआ।
क्या मतलब अभी तक लेक्चर नहीं हुआ एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप का?
सर वो आई थिंक टीचर का थोड़ा शायद कोई प्रॉब्लम चल रहा था, इस वीक शायद हो जाए, लेकिन पहले 1-2 वीक मिस हुआ लेक्चर उसका।
अच्छा, अभी तक आपकी कोई मीटिंग नहीं हुई एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप की?
यस सर, वो कल लेक्चर है, कल होगा इंशाल्लाह।
कल होगा, ओके ओके, दैट्स फाइन। बट एनीवेज अभी तक का डिसीजन ये है कि एग्जाम होगा, बट इफ इट चेंजेस आई विल लेट यू गाइस नो। ओके
ओके सर, थैंक यू।
और सेकेंडली आई विल बी कीपिंग ट्रैक, आज मेरे से मिस हो गया, आई विल बी कीपिंग ट्रैक ऑफ द पीपल हु आर पार्टिसिपेटिंग इन द क्लास। आई रियलाइज दैट देयर आर सम स्टूडेंट्स हु आर जस्ट log in, just log their accounts in and then they left, right? So in this class I really want to have a discussion, so I keep track, I will be keeping track of the people who are participating in the discussion, how many time a particular student participates in the class discussion, so that will also contribute to your grades finally. Okay,
ओके सर, थैंक यू।
all right, so with this, if you guys do not have any further questions, then let's conclude our discussion here, and I will see you next class inshallah. Okay, Allah Hafiz.